Perception is in the eye of the beholder. Literally, that is what perception is. It is the world and parts of it as you see it, and it is largely responsible for all of the positive, negative, transcendent, and lethal elements of bipolar disorder as manipulated by chemical imbalances in the mind. My name is Bill, and I have bipolar disorder. I now know that the depression side of the disease, even suicidal tendencies, began to appear in my mid-teens. I know that the full-on hypomanic and manic episodes began when I was about 19 years old and attending a university. I was diagnosed at the age of 30. So what is this perception issue? There are times when I can somehow explain complex emotions in prose or poetry that most people do not seem to relate to in such a transcribable way. These are hypomanic times when the chemicals flood the mind a bit too much, often resulting in extremely high levels of energy, lack of need for sleep, and creative outbursts in a few days that would take many people months to complete. That is not to say that all bipolar people are great artists, or that you can't be a great artist without being bipolar. But at the very least, bipolar artists often are quite prolific. While none of that may seem like a matter of perception, it must be realized that the bipolar artist in hypomania, and the higher the hypomania the more true this usually is, tends to present what may be even the most common idea in ways that do not seem to have ever even been dreamt before. The mind-boggling music of Beethoven, that glorious starry night, or even that pleading, "What else should I be?" While creative work in hypomania, in my opinion, is absolutely driven by a perception change, if the hypomania is allowed to continue climbing into the upper echelons of the hypostation, or, unfortunately, into the full-blown manic state of mind, perception typically becomes mostly or completely separated from reality. A bipolar person in these states has severe illusions of grandeur and often experiences literal hallucinations. There can be a full and complete psychotic break. The word maniac, in fact, is derived from the term mania. I have struggled in the past with both oral and visual hallucinations, even though I knew they were not real. Keeping any kind of accurate perception is awfully difficult when you are staring at yourself a few feet away from you, staring back at you. Perception takes a real hit when you are the last one to bed and hear a demonic "Why?" as you turn out the last light, as if someone or something just whispered in your ear. It is perception that often made me so anxious in social situations, at least before a little alcohol or something could calm me down. But chances are it was just my perception, the paranoia, that all of these people who did not know me and were not even looking at me were actually discussing how terrible and worthless I was. It was my perception shouting that at me in stark contrast to everyone else's. And it is most certainly perception that leads one to lie in bed for days or weeks or months, slowly slipping into an ever-worsening coma of depression or even suicidal ideation. My room could have been full of family and friends at times, and it would not have mattered in the least, for you see, my perception had made the room too black to see them, and the sounds of my own head far too loud to hear them. In hindsight, it is certainly nice to know someone was there for me, though. At times, extreme depression can swoop in swiftly, nipping on the heels of an elevated state as the bipolar person freefalls. I once came very near swallowing several bottles of pills in one of these states, as they seemed to be calling to me, as if in a spotlight, claiming to be the only things that would prevent the pain I would soon be in thanks to depression. There are two things relating to all of this that I do not think are false perception problems, however, at least not perception alone. The first is that I believe some piece of every dark depression and probably parts of the hypomanias and manias stick with bipolar people forever. They are in my eyes, I know for sure, though you would have to look pretty closely to see them. The other thing that I know is not a false perception is that the handful of people who have come through for me over the years are true and good people, my wife the leader. She is mentally sound and yet thinks I give her too much credit, in this regard and many others. What great joy it gives me every time we argue about such things, to inform her that, in fact, it is her perception that is off. Thanks a lot for watching, and leave a comment or get in touch with me any way you can if you have questions or concerns, or just need someone to talk to. Thanks.